Hey buddy, watch this.
Hello, RegisKillbin is the name and Hearthstone is the game, and today I'm taking a look at my top 10 rogue cards. Now these are the 10 rogue cards that are played the most in the meta over the history of Hearthstone, that have the most impact on the game. Now they aren't necessarily like the biggest minions that would win in a fight, but they're all about value and efficiency and class-defining cards for Rogue. So starting with number 10, the 10th best Rogue card to me is Fan of Knives. My Hearthstone's lagging up a little, but Fan of Knives. This 3-mana spell is a great little miniature area of effect clear that deals 1 damage to all enemy minions. It's great against things like Silverhand recruits that seem to pop up, or imps all the time. These little minions can also just tidy off a board of damaged minions or set up weapon trades. So many different ways that 1 damage is effective. But that's not the only good thing about Fan of Knives. Even though you'd probably play it occasionally just for that effect, it also draws you a card, which is so vital in Rogue, and the fact that it's a spell as well just makes it so good in a variety of ways and fits the class, and that's why it's included in a vast majority of Rogue decks. Moving on to the 9th slot. This is one of the coolest minions in Rogue, and one of its legendary cards, Edwin Vancleef. This 3-mana 2/2 isn't very exciting on its own until you consider the combo effect. You gain +2/+2 for each card played earlier this turn. Now often that means Edwin Vancleef is probably just going to be a 4/4 or a 6/6, which is already incredibly good for only 3 mana. You're pretty happy when it's a 4/4, you're ecstatic when it's a 6/6, but there are also those rare instances where you're pretty sure your opponent doesn't have any removal and you go absolutely crazy, and suddenly Edwin Vancleef is a 12/12 or a 14/14 that wins you the game in just a single attack or 2. But really he's just a value minion that fits into so many different lists and plays well with cards like Preparation and all the low-cost spells that Rogue tends to have, and that's why Edwin Vancleef is included in so many different lists. Moving on to the 8th best Rogue card, for me it's Tinker's Sharp Sword Oil. This is really the foundation for a variety of Rogue decks, kind of just called oil decks, that are all about building up your weapon and using it with things like Blade Flurry, or just doing lots of damage to the enemy's face. And that's exactly what Tinker's Sharp Sword Oil allows you to do. Not only does it give your weapon +3 attack, but it also gives a minion +3 attack if you're able to combo it out. So in many instances that means it's worth 6 damage the turn it's played, and potentially 9 damage or more across multiple turns, which for only 4 mana is incredibly valuable and makes Tinker's very, very good for any rogues looking to burst down the opponent. Moving on to the 7th best card. This one doesn't cost anything at all. It is the 0-mana Backstab. Deal 2 damage to an undamaged minion. Backstab's really just all about tempo and helps you get up on the board early, because you can play it in any given turn and kill really scary things like knife jugglers basically for free. Certainly it costs you a card, but it doesn't cost you mana, which means you can develop your own threats while removing your opponents for huge tempo and board advantages. Also, of course, 0-mana spells work very well to set up combos. So Backstab into something like SI7 Agent, for instance, is a 4 damage combo that's very nice and makes Rogue able to compete and keep up on the board early. And that's why Backstab shows up in virtually every Rogue deck ever. Moving on to the 6th best spell. It is another one that's actually only 2 mana, not 6 mana, and it belongs to Rogue. It is Sap. This one is the super tempo card. For only 2 mana, you basically get to negate any minion that your opponent has played. When those hunters lay down the Savannah Highmane and spend 6 mana, when those paladins play the Tyrion for 8 mana, you get to say, no thank you, I'll deal with that later, sap it back to their hand, and basically waste all of the mana they just spent while giving you more time to accrue resources or hit their face for big damage. So for only 2 mana, you can negate 8 mana cards, 10 mana cards, etc., making Sap really the ultimate tempo play and a great way to ignore taunts while looking to kill your opponents. and just a good fit for so many different rogue decks. Moving on to the 5th best rogue card. It is another spell right above the previous one. This time it's Blade Flurry. This 2-mana spell allows you to destroy your weapon and deal its damage to all enemies. That means both enemy minions and the opponent's face. So Blade Flurry is a fantastic board clear that can kill so many different minions when it hits for 4 or 6 or maybe even 8 damage, thanks to things like Deadly Poison and Tinker's Sharpsword Oil. It's also just a lot of damage to the enemy's face, allowing you to do things like attack with your big weapon and then cast Blade Flurry to deal double damage, essentially 2 durability worth of weapon damage in a single turn. So it's good for keeping the board in control and good for rushing down an opponent, both of which are things rogues love to do. Moving on to the 4th best card. It's a 1-mana spell by the name of Deadly Poison. This is really the fundamental card that supports the Rogue's hero power. Rogue's hero power as it stands is okay, but Deadly Poison really just makes it great because a 3-attack weapon is so much more valuable than a 1-attack weapon because so many things have that 3 health. It also sets up, of course, Blade Flurry. It combos nicely into so many different things because it is a cheap 1-mana spell. It allows rogues to keep the board in control early, even if they aren't able to develop a cheap minion. And rogues don't really have a lot of 1 or 2 cost minions that they love to play. So Deadly Poison allows them to keep things in control while finding time to play mid-range minions that they do tend to play. So Deadly Poison keeps you in control. It also just gives you damage in the late game, sets up combos. Perfect rogue card that is played virtually in every rogue deck out there. But it's not the best. There are 3 more cards I think are better. The top 3, beginning with a minion by the name of SI7 Agent. I actually think this might be the best 3-mana minion in the game. If not, it's certainly one of the best. It's a 3/3 for 3 mana, which is right along your expectations. That's a solid body for its cost. But it's the combo effect that makes SI7 so good. With something like the Coin or a Backstab or even a Deadly Poison, you can get this card out pretty early and kill most early game minions outright while still establishing a very strong presence of your own. So coining this out to kill a Knife Juggler is like the most satisfying play in Hearthstone because you get a good minion, you removed theirs, and it wasn't even expensive to do so. It's good in the late game to ping off bigger minions that you've had to trade into with another minion or a weapon. It can even hit the enemy's face for 2 damage for lethal from time to time, which is always nice. So SI7 Agent is a flexible, affordable, valuable minion, and again, probably one of the best in the game at the 3 spot. So rogues always find a way to put this into their deck for very good reason. But there are 2 cards I think are actually more fundamental to rogues' success and better, the first of which is Preparation. This is another 0-mana spell that, of course, sets up combos beautifully, and that's, of course, very important for rogue, but the real value in Preparation is all about tempo. It allows you to play expensive spells more affordably, which means you can play more cards in a single turn at a lower cost, which means you can do things like cast Fan of Knives for free, which is fantastic if you need to answer the board while still playing a minion. It's most commonly probably played into Sprint, which gives you a 4-mana sprint that draws you 4 cards, which is ridiculously high value. But really any spell, even if it's Eviscerate or Sap or anything else, anytime you can find that extra mana thanks to Preparation, it's fantastic to be able to squeeze in that 1 extra spell that might make the difference between clearing the board, killing your opponent, so many different things. But Preparation also, of course, is great with a card called Gadgetzan Auctioneer and the Miracle Rogue archetype. Preparation really made that possible, not only with damage, but just the fact that it's a spell allows you to draw more cards into another spell, which draws you more cards, and really just starts the Gadgets and Auctioneer card draw chain that is so beautiful to see. So Preparation fits into so many different lists and has such a powerful effect when it's cast. It's always great to surprise opponent when they think you're out of gas and you can't do anything else. Then you cast that Prep into the Sap or the Eviscerate or the Fan of Knives to just ruin their dreams. So that's what makes Prep so very good. But I don't think it's the most fundamental or the best card in Rogue. I actually think that honor belongs to Eviscerate. To me, this is the most reliable and consistent and commonly used Rogue card. Now, it's not very exciting. It's part of the classic set. It's been around forever. But it's just so good. For 2 mana, you get 4 damage. That makes it a little bit better than the Frostbolts of the world or the Dark Bombs of the world. 4 damage kills so many things that 3 won't. So it's good for killing minions from time to time. It's great when it hits the enemy face. It's so good with spell damage buffs from something like Blood Mage Thalnos or an Azure Drake, because 5 damage is even better, and so many things die to 5 damage. Eviscerate's just like the perfect tool for Rogue. You almost always have a way to combo it out to maximize its value. Even if you don't, sometimes the 2 damage is just enough. It can do different things, hit minions, hit the face. It's just the right cost so that it fits alongside so many other cards smoothly and fills out your curve nicely. It works well with Prep. It's just good. It's just a nice, solid, consistent, reliable card. So no, it's not the most exciting choice for the best Rogue card, but there's a reason it's in every Rogue deck ever, whether it's like a face minion-based deck. They want that damage. If it's a late-game board control, like Malygos-style Rogue, they still put in Eviscerate, even though you can't use it with Malygos very smoothly. It's still just good to have, because it's so good along the way for controlling the board or sneaking in extra damage. It's perfect in Miracle Rogues. It's great in Oil Rogues. They just all love Eviscerate. And that's why, to me, even though it's boring, it is the best Rogue card in Hearthstone. And there you have it. That's my list of the 10 best Rogue cards. I'm sure you think some of my choices are crazy, as you undoubtedly do. So let me know where you think cards should be moved around. If Eviscerate's really the 10th best, let me know. If I missed a card you think deserves to be on the list, I'd be happy to hear your thoughts there as well. So don't be shy. Let me know how your list shapes up as well. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, game on.